Okay, I have just a couple of quick announcements that I want to start with. First of all, for those that aren't aware, there's a JavaScript presentation that happens every other Wednesday. And you usually see the signs in the lobby with the big pink donut on it. I want to encourage you guys to be aware of JavaScript and what's going on in that technology. If you're doing any web development at all, there's going to be a point in your life where you'll have to know JavaScript. So it's worth being aware of what the technologies are in that space, in the front end space. So we encourage you to attend that. The next one will be on CSS Animation Part 2. So if you missed the last one, it's recorded and available on the Stack website, which is Integration Point. Also on the off Wednesday, so there's a Donuts Wednesday morning, and then the other Wednesday, the following Wednesday, is what they call Cafe Coding. You may have seen those signs around. And it's a place down, we're in the cafeteria in the Rob, and you can just come and do your normal work, whatever you're normally doing, and just be down there with us. There's usually some refreshments, and then if you have some questions, you can ask the people that are there. There'll be Java Stack people, JavaScript Stack people, and .NET Stack people that are available to help. And so if you want to come to that, you're welcome to do that. It's usually about from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. So you can just come hang out. If you don't have any questions, you can listen to what other people are talking about, what questions they have. And so it's a good way to see who else is working on stuff that you might be working on as well. The last thing about this presentation I just want to announce before we get started is you'll want to stay to the end because we will be giving away a prize pack at the end of the presentation. I have written a little random number generator. It took me about 5 minutes in C# to write this random number generator, which we get to display every time we have these .NET engineering forums. And Matthew's going to help me. He'll be the prize picker, the number picker. Also, make sure you get your name signed on the roll that'll be passed around, because that's what we'll be pulling the name from for the winner of the prizes. For those of you who are connected remotely, if you happen to be in the Riverton office building, you probably want to come down to Zion B, because you must be present to win. Okay, let's get started. The agenda for today, let's see if I can get this working. There we go. First, we'll talk about some online training and tutorial sites, some available help for you if you're not aware of that. Some conferences that Microsoft sponsors throughout the year. We'll bring up some of those and things that are upcoming and things that have happened in the past recently. And then the last half I'll be talking about one of the conferences that Microsoft put on just last week up in Redmond. It's called Visual Studio Live with an exclamation point. So I guess I have to say it, Visual Studio Live, right? Punctuation. Okay. So I want to start by saying, where do you go when you have a coding problem? You're working on something really hard, you get stumped, you have no idea what to do next. What do you do? Where do you go? Google. You Google it with Bing, right? You look it up online because Google is pretty smart and so is Bing. And when you're doing .NET development, you use Bing. If you're using JavaScript development, you use Google, right?
No, I find it works well with Google.
Everything's Google?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Google doesn't have anything to use .NET.
All right, so in this room, we typically are reverent of Microsoft because we're .NET developers. But today in my presentation, we're going to actually poke a little fun at Microsoft along the way. We'll make some fun of JavaScript along the way too, so that's not my fault. I do make fun of the keynote speaker at Visual Studio Live, but she was pregnant and she had a cold, so I am going to feel bad about it, but I'm going to make a little fun of her. Where else do you go? What else do you do when you're stuck and you just don't know where to turn? And Google is not helpful in this particular case that you're struggling with. What do you do? Stack Overflow. Why do you go there? A lot of smart people there, and people are asking questions. There's smart people that are stumped just like you are, and they ask for help. And somebody else is like, "Oh, I ran into that exact same problem. Here's the code that I use to solve my problem." So you want to find people that are asking similar kinds of questions. Anybody else have any place you go?
My OneNote.
OneNote. So you have notes. You've run into the problem before.
I just forgot about
you forgot about it, and you look through it, you search on all your notes that you have saved. Hopefully people have a place like that where either a notebook that you keep or pencil and paper. We don't do that anymore, right? So you go to OneNote, you store everything there, and then you can search for it if you need to find it again. Anybody else? Where else do you go for help?
Blogs, Pluralsight, and lynda.com.
Okay, blogs or lynda.com has a lot of great training videos and a lot of great instructors that have been teaching a long time. They're usually pretty good. Yes? User groups, okay. And those are great because you can get on there. You can answer some people's questions as well as ask your own questions. In-person user groups, that's great. Yep. MSDN, okay. There's a lot of great code samples on MSDN. A lot of the APIs that you're calling, you need to know what the type of the parameter is, whatever. All that's really helpful.
I zoned out for a second, and then I come back, so hopefully nobody ever said this, but Stack Team?
The Stack Team. You would go to the Stack Team for help? Thank you for bringing that up.
Like 10 on that list.
I'm glad there's at least one person out there that comes to us for help. So Tony Spencer, who is standing over here by our camera, and myself are available for any .NET questions you might have. If you have some questions that are like, well, my JavaScript's not talking to my backend .NET code, we also have some JavaScript experts on the Stack Team. And if you have any questions about Java, there is some help there as well. But you wouldn't be in this room if you needed help with Java, probably.
What's the favored channel for engaging the Stack Team?
How do you engage the Stack Team? How do you contact the Stack Team? That's a great question. Thank you very much for asking that, which brings us to our first slide. So we do have a website. The Stack Team has a website. It's called Integration Point. The vanity URL is integration-point. If you go to that today, it will take you to our current site, and there's a lot of information there. It's a little tough to navigate through and find exactly what you want. If you know what you're looking for, you can type it in and it will search for it. That's great. If you don't really know what's available there, we've decided that we're going to rewrite the site, and it is now currently in beta. And so the URL is up there. It's ip.leschurch.org. Unfortunately, there's some talk about the web service that it calls into may be down this morning, and the owner is sick at home. So don't go to it yet. It's in beta. We're still kind of working out some kinks and stuff, but we're hoping by early next week we will have that go live and it'll be public. And if you keep using that integration-point vanity URL, we'll be redirecting that to the new site as soon as it becomes public. So just be aware of that. The new site has a better navigation, so you can kind of open nodes in a hierarchical format, kind of search through and find something that you're interested in, or something you didn't even know was there, and then take some time and look at the article or the document or the link to the video or whatever that's there. So that is one way. And on that site, it does have contact information for me and Tony and for the rest of the Stack Team. Also, sitting on the front row up here is Mike Gibby. Mike, raise your hand. He is the Stack Team Solution Manager. If you have engagements where you'd like us to come and be on your team for a week or two or for a short time, do some hands-on, some be on your team for a while, maybe one day a week for a month, something like that, talk to Mike and he can arrange how to handle billing and our availability and stuff. Okay, so let's move forward. So that's the Stack Team is another way you can get help if you're just stuck and you don't know what to do. And if we don't know the answer, we have Microsoft behind us that we can go talk to and we can get experts either here on site or we can connect you up with people. And so we have a lot of ways to connect and find the solution to your problems. Also,
Can you write up the email address as well as
Sure.
the Slack channel that we monitor?
Sure, you can't read this very well though.
I almost see that.
Almost. I could use the orange pen, but that won't help either. You know what?
There's a black pen. I'll put it over there.
Thank you. Okay, so this slide here has a couple of other opportunities for you to get some training. Lynda.com was mentioned, Pluralsight was mentioned, Codeplex. There's a lot of stuff on GitHub. Microsoft is doing more and more open source of their coding and their samples and putting more stuff out on GitHub for you to be able to download and just get it running on your machine. One that I've been using quite a bit lately is the second one on the list, which is Microsoft Virtual Academy, MVA. If you go there, you can, with an MSDN license or a Windows Live account, you can get on. It will track all the classes you've taken. You can actually become a Microsoft certified professional. There's a lot of training there, and then you'll have to go take the exams, but you can get a lot of the training and stuff that they do there online. You can add classes to your favorites list, your course outline. You have a list of stuff that you can take that you find, and they have new stuff that's being posted all the time. So that's a good place to go to look for available training, is Microsoft Virtual Academy. Yes, question?
Just on Pluralsight, I just got a subscription there, and I guess the church has an agreement with Pluralsight, and we can get the $500 training for $200, so that's available to us.
Thank you for bringing that up on Pluralsight. With the church has an agreement with Pluralsight. We do get a discount. I'm not quite sure who the person to contact is. There is somebody here at the church that owns that contract between us and Pluralsight. And so, thank you. And so we can get a discount. You'll just have to, I don't know, if you contact me, I will find out. I do have that information elsewhere, unless somebody else knows in the room. Okay, so I do know the person at Microsoft, at the church that will own our site to Pluralsight. Also with MSDN license, which all of you should have, you do get, Microsoft has paid Pluralsight to make, I think it used to be 30 classes. I think now it's more like 40 or 50 classes, but there are some classes available that Microsoft wants everybody that has an MSDN license to be able to take on Pluralsight. So you can learn about SQL Server, you can learn about MVC, you can learn about C#. There's a whole bunch of classes that are just available for free if you have an MSDN license. If you don't have an MSDN license, come talk to me. The church has a great discount on that. I think it's like $69 for a professional license per year. Pretty cheap, and all the benefits that you get along with it. So,
The contact person for Pluralsight, our account manager is Beth Noturno, and
Beth
T-T-U-R-N-O. She's not at LDS.
Noturno.
She handles the,
Okay, so she's a Pluralsight employee, but she works with the contract with the church, and so that's the person to contact. Great. Okay, and I can make the, in the notes on this recording, we are videotaping the presentation today. All these slides, everything will be posted up on the Integration Point site, so you'll be able to watch this recording, fast forward through the parts that I'm talking that you're not interested in, and get to the parts that you do want to watch. So we'll get that in the notes. Thank you. Channel 9, how many people have been to Channel 9 and watched some of the videos that are available there? Usually after a big conference like this last one that was last week, the Visual Studio Live, there was quite a few of the presentations were posted there. And so Channel 9 is a great place to go to catch up on things that you may have missed. Also on the Azure portal, with your MSDN license, you get free time every month. If you have an Ultimate license or Enterprise license or Premium license, you get $150 free on Azure. So if you want to spin up a website or a web service or use any of the Azure SQL Server functionality, the portal for the directory, there's a whole bunch of stuff on Azure, and new stuff is coming out all the time. If you just want to play around with it, you get free money every month with your MSDN license to be able to kind of get started and get familiar with it. Microsoft feeds you that little bit for free. It's like cocaine, and then you get addicted, and then you spend a bunch of money, right? So let's see. Okay, so the next slide is we have a little, I found this really stupid, well done professional video showing about some places you can go for beginning tutorials. Is anybody familiar with GoAnimate? It's just really kind of a simple little thing you can do. You just type in the text of what you want it to say, and then it says it in a cartoony way. It's pretty silly. And they kind of make fun of Microsoft. They're trying to tell you how great Microsoft and C# is, and they do it in a way where they're slapping Microsoft in the face. It's kind of funny. All right. Maybe I can get to that site, right? There. They try to be funny, but I don't know. Wait.
What do you
How do I switch screens? Should I just drag it over to the other screen?
You do that in the WebEx, but people won't see it.
technical difficulties. There we go.
Consider the best C# tutorial for beginners.
Probably Microsoft site.
It is hard to believe that Microsoft would be best at anything. People stuck with Windows XP for years because Windows 7 and 8 stank, while Windows 9 was non-existent.
Regardless of what you think of the Microsoft OS as a whole, their servers and many applications run on C.NET, also called C#.
I do not plan on working for Microsoft.
And because Microsoft locked a lot of enterprises into long-term contracts for their servers, a lot of web apps and websites use it too. That's why msdn.microsoft.com has some very good C# tutorials.
I suppose that is like Apple giving lessons on Swift, their proprietary programming language.
Exactly. Though if you do not like Microsoft, you can try tutorialspoint.com and their lessons on everything. From the basic syntax of C# to variables to operators to decision making.
I can make a decision to try them before using Microsoft's site.
You could also try the C#.net-tutorials.com site. They have around 50 articles on everything from Hello World and C# to data types, to loops and arrays.
That's quite an array of topics.
I think C#-station.com covers more topics, but C#.net-tutorials.com covers more information, including instructions on installing the .NET Framework SDK and the Visual Studio Express.
That's pretty in-depth.
If you want truly in-depth, you can go to ecma-international.org to read the standards on the C# programming language.
I'd rather slog through the Microsoft website on it. Reading technical standards is guaranteed, only to solve my insomnia.
The standard does outline the syntax of the language, the semantics of it, how C# programs are supposed to be represented.
So C# is not one of those languages where you get to be ultra creative.
Absolutely not. If you want that, go for PHP.
I would, except for the utter lack of money in it.
Lynda.com has some good C tutorials from beginner to advanced. Or you could try the LearnCS.org site for another free online C# tutorial.
Free is definitely good right now. After I get the basics down, then I'll try to manage the MIT Open courses on the more advanced topics.
You could always try the library for C# for stupid people books.
That's worse than trying to read the standards for free online. I cannot switch over to games as a distraction when I get too bored reading it.
Then go to www.java2s.com C# tutorials for everything from exceptions to variables. Each section is short enough for even your attention span.
Yeah. Okay, so that was just for fun. Let me go back to extend. And okay. Not quite. I gotta switch to. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. And now I lost my. Okay. So here are the sites that they mentioned in case you weren't able to write those down as they were going through that. I should say, here are the sites that were mentioned in the video. So if you want to learn about C#, and sometimes we learn languages on our own, just picking stuff up as we go, and you kind of miss some of the basics. And so if you want to kind of see what you've missed as you've learned, or just a refresher course, these are some great ways to go back and learn some things. And I want you to be aware of always trying to improve your skill set. So if you already know C# pretty well, then probably these are not the sites you want to go to, but you maybe want to go to learn something more about some other programming language. Like JavaScript would be a great additional language for you to learn if you're doing web development. Okay. Here's some conferences that Microsoft does typically annually. The first one that's kind of their big developer conference. It used to be called PDC, Professional Developer Conference. Now it's called Build. It's also included Mix, which was a conference they used to do in the old days. And so there's a lot going on at Build, and they've made it to be a very big conference. There's a lot of people that go. It's typically around April each year. The sign up to go will happen usually in late January, early February. This last year it filled up in 2 minutes and you got on the wait list. And luckily we were able to get a lot of people from the church to go that were on the wait list, as we have some contacts at Microsoft that live in Denver. So that was very helpful. But there are other conferences. You don't have to just go to the Build conference in San Francisco typically. The one that they just had this last week was Visual Studio Live. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But there are other, this one was in Redmond, but they have them throughout the year. And so I'll show some dates on that. There's also a Xamarin Cloud conference. There was a developer conference coming up. It's actually, they had one last year and they're doing it again this year, August 26th. And it's just streamed. It's online. And so there's nothing to go to. There's nowhere to fly. You don't have to get a hotel and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty handy to hear what they're saying, what Microsoft is saying about Azure and what they're directing us to do as far as going forward with cloud solutions. The Microsoft Ignite conference used to be called Tech Ed. So a lot of people would go to Tech Ed in the past, and it was really just educational. It was just training. There's a lot of great classes on some beginning technologies with Microsoft, and so be aware of that. That's coming up in Atlanta next month. The Win HEC, which is the hardware conference that they do, that's coming up this fall. Last year it was in China. I don't know where this one, they haven't announced where it's going to be yet, but I'm hoping that they're going to announce at the hardware conference the new Surface phone. Since they've killed the Nokia and Lumia series, we're hoping that the new Microsoft proprietary Surface phone will be announced sometime soon. And a lot of times Microsoft makes these announcements right before Christmas time so they can sell to retail stores. So we'll see what happens at that conference. And then also Microsoft Envision, the next one will be in Los Angeles after the first of the year.
There's also one that you're missing, which is angle brackets.
Oh, there are actually a lot of events. If you go to Microsoft events, Microsoft.com events, there's usually stuff every week. There's like tons of stuff on their calendar, and they're doing this Visual Studio Live conference. They'll be doing that again, and they just did the one in Redmond. Later next month is in Anaheim. There's Washington in October, in Orlando, and then first of the year they'll be doing some more elsewhere. So if you missed this conference, or if you go to Channel 9, they only have about 15 recorded videos sessions on Channel 9, even though there was about 100 or so sessions at the conference. It was 3 days plus workshops. So depending on, if you look at these dates, if it has 4 days, like this one has 5 days, that typically means there's a workshop on the Monday, the conference is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then there's another workshop on Friday. A lot of times the workshops are the same, but you can either go before or after the conference. The ones that have only 4 days, like this one in Anaheim, that means that one of those 4 days will be the workshop day. And it's optional, you don't have to go to it, but I found that if you go to that workshop, it's a lot of hands-on stuff. You're really using this stuff. Whereas during the conference, the presentations are, you just kind of sit there and listen and take notes. But if you really want to get your hands dirty and get into the code and start playing with stuff, they a lot of times will have virtual machines that you can use. They have hard drives you plug in to your machine, whatever, and you can just get right on it and use their technologies. Okay, so the keynote was Open Microsoft Development Platform. It was a very nice lady. I've seen her present before at Build. She's very pregnant. She had a cold, and so I hate to make fun of her, but she had this slide. Oh, whoops, this is the next one after this. Okay, was it the next one after this? Maybe not. Anyway, here are the topics that are recorded. I'll get back to making fun of her later. here are the topics that the recorded sessions are. So if you go out to Channel 9, you can see some of the sessions on these topics. However, here are the topics that were also covered in the conference, but they didn't record the sessions or make them available on Channel 9. So if you went to the conference in person, you would be able to see, so if you're interested in some of these topics, you might want to think about signing up for the Visual Studio Live conference in Anaheim next month or so forth. Also, the Visual Studio Live website has some sessions, but there was only like 4 or 5 there. So the keynote covered these. Sometimes you feel like at the church, especially as a .NET developer, you're the only person doing any .NET code anywhere, but be aware that this is fairly large. There are a lot of developers worldwide. There are 2.9 million monthly active developers, over 12 million VS 2015 downloads. I mean, the numbers are just huge. This is pretty big, and there's new stuff going on. Microsoft is actively trying to keep customers, keep developers, provide the tools that you need to develop the applications that you need. So the kind of the mantra, the theme of the conference really was any developer, any app on any platform. And so they talk about the language that Visual Studio supports now, and it's just growing and growing. I wrote some of the top ones down here, but there's 100 more. There are 100 plus languages that are being supported now in Visual Studio. When I say supported, it means IntelliSense, it means coloring, it means, you're going to get an experience, what you're used to in C# using these other languages. So for those of you who have been using other IDEs, you might want to think about coming back to Visual Studio. Just throwing that out there for those of you who've left. Also, they're doing a lot more with cross-platform stuff. Yes, question?
I heard the team lead for the Java stack is using VS Code. That's right.
The lead of the Java stack is using VS Code. That is amazing. We're crossing corporate boundaries with technology. He can't defend himself because he's not here. Okay, we'll just believe you. So anyway, Microsoft is really doing a lot more for that, and they're providing a lot of these tools. Visual Studio 2015. Oh, by the way, the next version of Visual Studio, Roger, is called version 15, not to be confused with the current 2015, right? Version 15. Why do they do that to us? Sorry, this is Roger Davis. He is our Microsoft contact. I just want to pull him out while I'm making fun of the versioning numbers at Microsoft.
Great to be here. I got the invite. I said, I'm here in the building. I'll stop in. I remember seeing something on that.
So when it's finally released...
There is a rationale to what that means, and it was explained to me about 2 months ago. I'm sorry, I can't remember what it is, but it does actually make sense when you really understand it, but I apologize because it's not intuitively obvious.
It wasn't 7, 8, 9,
So I apologize.
12, 13, 14. What is it? John, do you have a comment on this?
I think it's because the release cadence is picking up, and so it doesn't make sense to do it by year anymore.
Okay, so they want to get off of the year because they're releasing more frequently. I think you're right on that. Great. And they have been doing updates quarterly, so if you have Visual Studio 2015 and you haven't got any updates since you first installed it, you're probably behind. You should be, I think, on update 3 is the latest. David?
And it has been using those numbers. If you look at where the installed
That's right.
is,
Your folders.
our current one's
Yeah.
14, last one was 12.
Yeah, so the versions have been there all along. There was version 12, that was the 2013 version. Then they skipped over 13 and they went to 14. So the 2015 version was really version 14. So they're on version 15, and if they release it this year, they may call it 2016, but we don't know that for sure. All right, just to make fun of Microsoft. That's just fun. I worked for Microsoft for 10 years, and they paid me a lot of money, but treated me pretty bad. Okay, here's the slide I wanted to make fun of the keynote. I just can't not see these things. I don't know if you're seeing this, but for me, it just jumps right out. You'd think that the keynote would get the name of the company right. I don't know if she's going to get in trouble for that. It jumped out at me, and so and the video they just flash it up there, and I think the cameraman or somebody knew that, oh, what, we got the name of the company wrong, we better take it off. So it only flashed for a second, but long enough for me to get a screenshot. Okay, let's move on to the last thing I want to cover for the last half an hour is just the some of the sessions that were talked about. I'm going to cover these 3 sessions, even though there was a lot more that was there. But as you are aware, when we come back from Build, we have some of the people who attended the conference stand up and they say, here's my favorite session, and they give you little insights about what the session was about. Rather than doing it that way and just listening to me talk about 3 sessions, I thought I would take little snippets of each one of the 3. They're about 7 minutes long, so I hope we don't run out of time. But make sure you stay to the end, and also for the prize giveaway. And also, if you haven't signed the roll, it's over on the donut table. So if you make sure you get your name signed in there when we do the drawing, you'll be eligible for the prize. Okay, so let's look at this first video on TypeScript. I got to warn those that might know JavaScript or love JavaScript in the room. This guy loves JavaScript, but he kind of makes fun of it along the way too. So, all right. Where's my videos?
Hey everyone, having a good day?
And I need to go to...
So I can talk about TypeScript for C# developers.
Sorry, I don't have these. I didn't have good video editing software to clip these. So we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way. I can't get the right where I want to start.
No, I didn't.
Close enough.
Actually, one of the things I love
This
about
guy's from
C#
Sweden.
is the fact that it does what I tell it to do without weirdness, without going, oh, I can see that you're trying to use this. Do you want me to change it for you? No. Clippy, stay out of my editor. So, what's wrong with JavaScript? Well, that's wrong with JavaScript. I'm sorry, I'm getting all excited here about what's wrong with JavaScript. It's kind of freaky with the guy on stage getting like excited about telling you how wrong JavaScript is, but that's what I'm doing. So, the solution to JavaScript sucking, I'm going to take that back. I love JavaScript. The solution to JavaScript being a special kind of language is TypeScript. So what is TypeScript? Well, TypeScript is just a superset of JavaScript. So it is pretty much ECMAScript. It has the same syntax. A lot of TypeScript is JavaScript, while it then adds a bit on top of it. It adds a few more features. So all your properly formatted JavaScript or ECMAScript is TypeScript. You can take your JavaScript file and just rename it to .ts, and you will have a TypeScript file. It's going to blow up in your face. It's not going to work, because you will have done things in there that you shouldn't have done that will then not work in TypeScript, because TypeScript actually expects you to do things the right way. You still kind of need to learn JavaScript, because what you do is you take your TypeScript and you transpile it to JavaScript. So you take this beautiful TypeScript that you've created and crafted and loved to this beautiful thing, and you transpile it into this ugliness that is JavaScript. And then it breaks, and then you have to figure out why it breaks, and that's when you actually do need to know a little bit about JavaScript. So JavaScript is pretty much just ECMAScript++, or JavaScript Sharp, or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of JavaScript the way that we as C# devs like to see it. I did want to call it JavaScript++, but apparently that is a language. Who would have known? I'm going to have to check that out at some point. But the idea is that it's built, Microsoft has designed it to resonate well with us as curly developers doing the C# syntax, and we get a lot of stuff that we like from C#. Whereas if you're coming from a different background, TypeScript wouldn't be necessarily your choice. There are other tools that you can use, or other preprocessors, but TypeScript just, I don't know, it works for me, and it should work for anyone doing C#. There's a lot of languages involved here. It adds things like static typing. Something that JavaScript developers and a lot of other functional developers and non-type developers think that you never need static typing. Who needs static typing? Why in the world would you want to know that your variable is actually a number and not a string? Because actually, there's a big difference what you can do with a number as compared to a string. And when you start adding them together, it gets freaky if you start losing your typing. So I actually like static typing. It does remove some of the weird bugs that you can get otherwise by passing in the wrong things. Especially with JavaScript accepting parameters into functions being whatever, that means that if you write a function and you call it and then you decide to change the signature of the function, it won't actually complain when you're calling it with completely wrong variables, or parameters, which causes some problems. You have namespacing, so we can actually get namespaces in JavaScript and keep our things separate, so we don't necessarily need to pile everything into the global namespace. We get classes, we get interfaces, things that we're used to with object-oriented programming. We get enums, we get types, we get lambdas, we get generics. We're getting actually a language that looks a lot like C# does today with the lambda stuff that we can do, with the functional programming we can do inside of C#. And we get encapsulation. So JavaScript, everything in JavaScript is public, right? Because why in the world would you want to hide anything? Another awesome feature. You have to do all these weird tricks to get things hidden in JavaScript. TypeScript will give you encapsulation and will make things possible to be private or protected. Kind of. Because as soon as you decompile it or cross-pile it into JavaScript, it becomes public again. Couldn't get that right, could you? So let's have a look at TypeScript as such. I'm just going to show you some basic usage. And the good thing about that is you can just go to your browser. You're not seeing a bunch of flickering, right? Sweet, it's just me that gets my background flickering through every time I move the mouse. You go to typescriptlang.org, which is now a beautiful blue webpage that has been redesigned recently, that has all the information you ever wanted to know about TypeScript. Then you click Playground. We'll take and remove all of that. And this thing makes it possible for you to online, in real time, write TypeScript on one side, and it will transpile it to JavaScript on the other side so you can see what's happening, and you can then run it without having to install anything on your machine. So if we go ahead and do something really, really complicated, like function, calculate, a comma b, return a plus b, alert, we should always do alerts. Alerts are awesome. Calculate, we even get IntelliSense, this is awesome. 1, 2,
Very complicated.
semicolon, run, ta-da! Nobody's impressed. Also, this transpiler that we're using here is awesome. It removed that one line, that's about what it did. And the reason for that is that I am writing ECMAScript, I'm writing JavaScript, and JavaScript is TypeScript, so that's fine, but it also means that there's nothing for me to transpile. But if I want to highlight the thing that makes JavaScript broken, things like, hey, let's pass in an extra argument. Actually, that was a bad argument, like that. It will give me a red squiggly line, because we're talking TypeScript. TypeScript doesn't accept you to be a moron. It actually expects you to write code like you're supposed to. If it requires 2 parameters, you pass in 2 parameters. Ta-da! It's not very complicated. So it says, supply parameters do not match the signature or call target. Sweet. Can pass in extra parameters. Sweet. Can I change this into this? Yes, I can. Can I run this? What's this going to return to me? It used to be 3, now it's going to write out what? 12. Yes. It will write out 12, but it's not going to be the number 12, it's going to be the string 12. Which, on the other hand, in JavaScript is pretty much the same thing. If you do the right thing, it's just turned that into a number 12 as well. Love JavaScript. So, how do we solve this? Well, this is where TypeScript comes into place. We'll just go up here and fix this. Chris, you are only allowed to pass in a number. And also, it will figure out that A, which is a number, plus b, which is a number, will return a number. So I don't have to specifically go in and say it's going to return a number. I can go up here and say number, and that will make sure that I am returning a number from that function, otherwise it figures it out. If I do an if statement in here that returns, so I either return a string or a number, it will start complaining and say, you're stupid, you can only send back one of these. So you will have to two-string one of them. Or maybe not. Just don't return different types. This will now start complaining and say, once again, can't pass in string because it's not a number, and it will keep me from doing anything. But if you start looking now, you look at the right-hand side, you check out the JavaScript and you figure out, wait a minute, what happened to my typing? Everything that you put in that is a type will be completely just removed as you transpile to JavaScript. There is no types checking in there. It doesn't automatically add something going.
Okay, we got other stuff to watch. So that was just a little precursor of what the type. How many people have used TypeScript? How many people have seen TypeScript before? You're aware of it. Okay. So it is, like he said, it just takes JavaScript, adds a little bit of extra, which makes TypeScript better than JavaScript, right? Because it's everything JavaScript plus a little more, so it's better. I don't know. All right. So if you're doing JavaScript development, you might want to consider TypeScript as a safety net for you. Okay. So let's go to the next video. This one is on Xamarin. Does anybody do any mobile development? Who's doing mobile development? Okay, we think that mobile is the way to go, right? That's the future of computing. Everyone is going to be doing mobile native apps, maybe, I don't know, web apps on mobile, whatever. If you're not already thinking about mobile, you may want to bring that up with your boss and think about what you want to do going forward. But Microsoft has come up with they invented this company called Xamarin and then bought it. No, what? So anyway, Microsoft is really embracing this cross-platform development, and so this is a tool. Xamarin is a company that they purchased that they feel like is something that they want to bring to their developers.
Session 1, VS Live, how's it going, everybody?
All right, let me get to the starting spot here.
Test to it, and of course my app just has to be super performant, and I want to get down to the bare metal of each platform. So that's what you want. But how do you get there? How do you create these applications? There's a few ways to do it. When I started mobile development 5 years ago, my boss came into my office and he said, James, we got 2 months until CES. It's my first day on the job. And I said, cool, that's 2 months. He said, we need an iOS, Android, and a Windows application. They gotta be native, they gotta be beautiful, go. And I said, okay, well, I've never built an iOS or Android application. And you know, Java, we can just lowercase a bunch of things, like I'll figure that out. And then I took a look at Objective-C and I went, oh, I have no idea what's going on here. And I was worried. I thought I was first going to have to go down this silo approach, which is building the app 3 specific times over and over again. I have to boot up Xcode with Objective-C or Swift to build an iOS app, and then Java inside of Android Studio, and then C# with Visual Studio to do my Windows application. And this approach, some developers take because they're like, I need a native application. I'm going to get a native app. But of course, in this scenario, you literally have 3 teams working in 3 different programming languages, 3 different tool sets, probably using different CI, different unit tests. And when you think of cross-platform mobile development, it's not just about sharing the actual business logic of your application. It's about your test suite. It's about your CI services. Everyone working together in one team to actually publish those apps at the same time. So if I fix a bug in one library, it should just update all my applications. And this approach can get really expensive really fast, and you keep hiring more specialists, and you have all these PMs, and literally I've gone into companies where their Android team is just facing their iOS team, but no one is talking to each other. So it's like, I don't even know why you put them in the same room. It's crazy. So you think maybe, well, what if I just put all my code in like one magic bucket, and then I get apps? That's what my parents think I do for a living. They're like, apps. Like, that's what you do, son. Yep, that is correct. I type in apps. That's how they magically appear after 2 to 4 weeks of Apple approval time. Actually, you can put all this code to this like app generator. I'll write some HTML, JavaScript. I'll get this cross-platform app. And this is where the bad stereotype often comes around a lot of these different write once, run anywhere frameworks that are out there. And there's a lot of different ones. Some are more native, and some are just a web browser often with kind of some native UI kind of mixed in. But the issue here is that you're never creating a purely native user interface. And you're always developing kind of against their API that they provide you, not the actual API of the platform. So if you want to go do something and it's not abstracted for you, you actually have to go write that code in one of the native languages. So you're not actually getting that benefit of writing everything in one language and actually sharing code across all the different platforms. And then since it often is just running in a browser, you're not going to get that pure native actual performance that we want. So that's where Xamarin is completely different. We essentially enable any .NET developer to create a shared logic layer for all of your applications. So all of your business logic, your models, view models, RESTful service calls, SQL databases, Azure integrations, is the things that are the same that don't care about the user interface. If I go make an HTTP request, why should it care if it's running on an iOS or Android device? It shouldn't. We let you build a shared backend, which is often 60, 70, or 80% of all your code in your application. Then we give you 100% API access for each platform, and let you craft a native user interface inside of Visual Studio for iOS, Android, and of course Windows. So you're sharing a mass amount of code, getting purely native applications, and I'll talk about performance, and we compile down to just a native application, which is beautiful. So you can share a lot of code. My first application I ever wrote, I shared 70% of code across all the different platforms. And that 30% of code was the UI or any of the platform-specific codes that I wanted to integrate into my application. These are some popular applications. I always like to point out, iCircuit was actually by my good friend Frank Kruger that I podcast with. I'm going to show another app that he actually built. It's called iCircuit. It's on every platform. It's a circuit simulator. He's a mechanical engineer by trade, and now an app developer. And his application shares anywhere between 90 in the dark color, all the way, some 70 all the way to 90 on Windows Phone. So the dark colors are the lighter color of the platform-specific code. And he's an iOS guy, so he always likes to add more iOS APIs like iCloud integration and things like that. But he has one one layer of logic that's shared. So if he fixes it once, he just publishes new apps, and boom, it's good to go. And you can even share more if you don't, need all those native APIs. If you're just doing CRUD operations and forms over data, you can share nearly almost up to 100% of code. So how that looks like if you're a Windows developer, essentially think of it like this. For a long time, even me, I've had this .NET runtime, .NET framework. It's run somewhere on Windows. It's been great. You dot, and then boom, you do it, and like everything. It's great. It's a wonderful world that we live in. Found C#. I was like, this is all I ever want to do again. It's all I've ever been doing. And on top, what we can see is specific platform APIs. So if I want to go to a specific platform, maybe it's UWP, maybe it's ASP.NET, or maybe it's even if I have to support WPF. There's platform-specific APIs that sit on top of those platforms. And for a long time, .NET has just been here, specifically on top of Windows. And with .NET Core, .NET Core kind of takes you to Mac and Linux and Windows in that platform. But we've been doing it for a long time. We're all about cross-platform. So we said, hey, we'll take that .NET runtime that you guys have been doing, and we'll create an open source version of it called Mono, which is the Mono runtime, which lives on, and we support it, we created. We said, we're going to give you all of that .NET goodness that you can just run on an iOS or Android device. So all of your .NET code is shared. Super highly performant. It's amazing. Then what we're going to do is take every single API inside of iOS and Android. We're going to create C# bindings around all of them, and then add C# features. So things like UIKit, iBeacon, Core Graphics, all these amazing iOS libraries that Apple ships. You can access all of them in C# with async away, events, delegates, lambdas, things that we know and love as C#.NET developers. So even though it is an iOS API, it feels like a C# API because it's all in C#. It's not no starters or brackets or anything crazy. So I can use LINQ, I can use all the things that we love. And of course we do the same on Android. You get all the Android namespaces up top. We also leverage all of the Google Play services, the Android support libraries, literally anything in the Android or iOS ecosystem you can use in your applications. And I said they're super...
Okay, we're going to stop there. But if you're doing any kind of mobile development and you're interested in Xamarin at all, I would highly recommend watching that whole. He takes you through creating an iOS and an Android device with all of his C# code that's being shared. Just a few little UI tweaks in the different platforms. So it's pretty impressive. All right, last one I want to get into is deep dive into ASP.NET Core. He has a picture of a submarine, so that tells you it's deep.
So we're going to start from scratch.
He's going to start with .NET Core and then go into ASP.
Folder. Let's make a new directory. PS live demo. All right. And I'm going to start from the command line. I hope by now that doesn't scare anyone. This is not to say that you have to do everything from the command line and just a text editor. You can go into Visual Studio and create new templates and all that. Wonderful tooling is all there. My goal here is to start as simple as possible and introduce concepts. So, but some people like working this way. If you really love Vim and just a command prompt, then this will really appeal to you. So let's create a new .NET Core app. Everything I'm going to do today is .NET Core based. And to do that, I use the .NET command line interface, and I'm going to say .NET New. What did that do? Well, that gave me just these two files, program.cs and project.json. To open those up, I am going to use my favorite simple text editor, which is Visual Studio Code. It's really nice.
He switches to Visual Studio later, but he starts out in Visual Studio
It has some
Code.
nice C# extensions for doing .NET development. All right, so it opened up the directory with those two files, and it's already prompting me to say that there are unresolved dependencies in my project.json file. What does that mean? Well, the project.json file is what specifies what all the dependencies are for my app. And in the .NET Core world, that means NuGet packages. Like, what packages does this app need? And it's telling me that you need to restore those packages so that they're available for development. I'm going to go ahead and tell it, well, I'm not actually going to tell Visual Studio Code to do it. I'll show you just from the command line. .NET restore is what I need to do to restore those packages. And you'll notice that as soon as that's done, another file has popped up here on the left-hand side. And I see some people squinting. Let me see if I can make it a little bit. So this file is capturing the entire resolved dependency graph of all the libraries that your app depends on. When you specify them in your project.json file, you only need to specify the top level ones. Now this project.json file, it says I don't have any app-specific dependencies. It does say that this is a .NET Core application, and it's using the Microsoft .NET Core app package. What is that? That's what we affectionately call the shared framework. It's a set of the BCL libraries that pretty much every app needs, and that you can expect to already be installed on the machine. You install .NET Core on the machine so that you can then run your portable .NET Core apps on that machine by doing .NET to whatever the app is. Okay? So I've restored the application, programs, yes, that looks like Hello World, nothing fancy there. Let's run this app, .NET run, what we do there. And this will do two things. You can see the output actually did succeed, Hello World. That actually did two things. It did a .NET build to actually build the application, and you can do that separately if you'd like, just like I just did. And then it ran the built assembly. If I just open up a file explorer and look at what's now in this directory, there's now a bin and OBJ folder. I go digging into bin. There's the output from the build. There's the actual DLL. To run that guy, I can now just say .NET, and then the name of the assembly, and that will just run the app. So that's the normal application model for running .NET Core-based applications. You say .NET and whatever the DLLs that you want to run that has the entry point. It's very similar if you've done anything with Mono, like you do Mono, whatever you want to run, or Java, or Python, or a lot of these other, anything that's pretty much cross-platform will have this model. So yeah? There are pre-built Docker images available that already have .NET Core installed that you can just go and grab and use, and they're on the Docker Hub, so you can just go grab those. All right, well that was just the intro to .NET Core stuff. Let's actually do some ASP.NET Core stuff now. So I'm going to go to my project.json file, and I'm going to add what it basically amounts to the core of ASP.NET Core. So Microsoft ASP.NET Core server. I get some nice IntelliSense here. It's kind of cool. And so I'm adding the Kestrel package. This is the Kestrel HP server. You only need to specify the top level dependencies. Everything in that's required by the Kestrel server will get pulled in, including the ASP.NET Core hosting libraries. So that's all I need. Save that. I'm going to go ahead and restore from Visual Studio Code just for convenience. And it's completed. Great. So now I have that package. So now what we're going to do is wire up ASP.NET Core hosting. So to do that, you need to build a host. Remember, right? You build a host, run it. So to build a host, I use a web host builder. And Visual Studio Code's, I believe in you, yes. Sometimes Visual Studio Code's namespace resolution stuff gets cranky. All right, so I'm going to use a web host builder, and I'm going to tell it I would like to use Kestrel as my server. And then I'm just going to define actually my app inline right here. I'm going to add a configure method to configure the request handling pipeline for my app. And it's just going to be hello world for right now. So we're going to find a little delegate here that says, all I want my app to do is to run this little piece of logic, which is take the context and write hello world to the response. Hello, VS Live. Alright, I got some namespaces I'm sure I need to resolve. Yep, the builder namespace, HTTP namespace. Good. Okay, that should all have been red squiggly list. Oh, I got one more here. Oh, that's because I need to actually build it. So there, I've built my host now. And then the second step is to run. Okay, so there's about 10 lines of code. That is a ASP.NET Core app server that returns hello world. Let's go ahead and actually run it. So .NET run. So that started the server, and it's telling me it's now listening on port 5000. We open up an impartial third-party browser, and hello, VS Live, okay? Now, normally you don't define your app startup logic inline on the web host builder. So what we're going to do is now going to follow the standard pattern, which is we define a startup class.
Okay, we're going to stop there. If you're doing anything with ASP.NET Core, you really want to watch this. He goes into a lot of great stuff, relates it to MVC, shows some great stuff with routing, controllers and things. So I would recommend looking into that. It gives you a great deep dive into the guts of what's going on. So that's a very handy session for anyone that's interested in that. We're out of time, so I want to end here, but I'm willing to stay afterward and answer any questions. If you want to go to Channel 9 or vslive.com, the URLs are in the presentation. Well, as soon as our video editing team gets this all set up and run, it'll be posted on the Integration Point site. So thanks for coming, and if you have any questions, welcome to stay after. We'll do the drawing right after the applause. Can you go get the